Welcome to Program Review. The purpose of Program Review is to ensure that all programs are aligned with the goals in the college's educational master plan. In a program review, programs analyze data on key metrics, develop 5-year objectives, and request resources needed to meet those objectives. Then, in subsequent years, they evaluate annual progress made towards their 5-year objectives. Programs complete a comprehensive review once every 5 years, in which they analyze data and set objectives. In each intervening year, they complete a mini-review in which they assess progress made towards those objectives. Comprehensive reviews are staggered so that in each year, some programs are completing a comprehensive review while others are completing a mini-review. The first step is to figure out whether you're completing a comprehensive review or not. You can find the list of programs that are completing a comprehensive review on the Program Review webpage for that year. To find the Program Review webpage, go to the Ventura College homepage, or venturacollege.edu, then hover over the About tab, and click on Institutional Effectiveness, Data, and Statistics. Then you'll scroll down until you see the Program Review link. The other option is just search for Program Review in the search bar. So we'll just type in Program Review, and then click through the options until you find the one that looks like this. Once you're on this page, you're going to scroll down until you find the current year. I'm making this video in 2023, so I'm going to select the 2023-2024 Program Review page. Then once you're on this page, you'll scroll down until you find a list of programs that are completing a comprehensive review in the current year. If your program is on this list, that means you're completing a comprehensive review this year. If your program is not on this list, that means you're completing a mini review this year. All programs will complete either a comprehensive review or a mini review every year. Next, you'll scroll down a little bit further and click on the link to log into the online program review page. I'm going to right-click the link and open it in a new tab just for the purposes of this video, but feel free to just click on it however you'd like. That will bring you to the Nuventive login page where you can achieve, improve, and adapt. Next, you'll click the sign-in link at the top right corner of the page. If your VCCD email address shows up in this list here, then just click on that. If not, then you'll type in your full VCCD email address, including the @vccd.edu. Click Next. And from there, it'll take you to our portal page to log in. This will bring you to the Program Review homepage. This page will display your current Program Review objectives and your resource requests. If this is your first time logging into the system this year, then it's going to display your objectives and resource requests from last year's Program Review. I'm going to use a chemistry program as an example here because they did a very nice job on their Program Review. The first step of filling out a comprehensive program review is to review and analyze your program's data. To do that, click the 3 lines at the top left of the page here, click on Program Review and Planning, and then Program Review Data and Analysis. Next, click the green plus button here or here. Then you'll see the questions pop up over here on the left that you need to respond to, as well as some graphs and data over here on the right. If you scroll down a bit, you can see all of the sections that need to be completed if you're completing a comprehensive review. If you're completing an instructional program review, this is what your program review will look like. You'll have questions on enrollment and demographics, success rate, etc. If you are filling this out for a student service program, you'll see sections on service usage, as well as 6-factor survey and SUOs. Administrative service programs have sections related to survey data and SUOs, as well as course success rate for a couple programs. Divisions have sections related to FTS, FTF, and productivity targets, as well as 6-factor surveys. And the executive team has data sections on an overall college enrollment demographics, success rates, and completion, as well as employee survey results and ISLOs and ISUOs. If we scroll back up to the top and you take a look at the questions in this general information section, you'll notice that they're just kind of overall general information questions about your program. There's no data that's actually associated with these questions. However, just about every other section here has data associated with it that you'll need to review in order to answer the questions in these sections. Before you start working on these sections, one thing I would suggest doing is clicking this button up in the top right of the screen to change the relative proportion of data to questions. If you click this one here, it'll split the screen in half, so you have the questions on the left half of the screen and the data dashboards on the right half of the screen. When you get to a section that requires you to review some data, the dashboards on the right will be reduced to display the specific data that you need to answer the questions in that section. For example, this section here is on enrollment and demographics. So when I click on this general observations question here, you'll notice that the dashboard's reduced to only display those that are related to enrollment and demographics. So the first, or even the second question, in this section is, what is the trend in your program's enrollment? Did it increase, decrease, or remain constant? So to answer that question, we'd click on this program enrollment dashboard, give it a second to load, and for chemistry we can see that in 2017-18 the enrollment was 3,328, 21-22 the enrollment was 3,329, so it actually didn't really change at all. So we'll go with remained constant. After we're done answering the questions associated with this dashboard, we'll click this X here to close it, and then we can move on to each of the other ones that we need to answer the questions. Again, if you're completing a comprehensive program review, you'll need to answer all the questions in each of these sections. However, you don't have to fill them all out in one sitting. If you want to start working on your program review and then save it and come back later, you can answer as many questions as you want. Click the Save button here at the top. And then your work will be saved, and it'll say when you last saved it here. I would recommend doing this every time you complete a section, just so that you don't accidentally lose any work. When you come back in to work on it the next time, you'll see that you'll have your page will look like this. So instead of just clicking the green plus to start all over, you'll see this 2022-2023 link will be available here. Click on the three dots and then go edit, and then you can pick up where you left off. Once you've completed all of these data analysis sections, the next step is to set your 3-year objectives and to request resources that you need to meet those objectives. To do that, you'll click on the 3 lines again up here at the top left, and you'll go to Program Objectives and Resource Requests. So we'll use institutional effectiveness as an example for this section. Before we do that though, a quick reminder that there's a difference between objectives and resource requests. So objectives are measurable outcomes related to the data that you just reviewed. So one example of a good objective for an instructional program would be increasing the course success rate, or closing equity gaps, or increasing the number of degrees and certificates awarded. Good objectives for administrative service programs or student service programs would be things like increasing student survey scores or increasing SUO results. Hiring faculty, staff, or renovating labs or classrooms are not objectives. Rather, these are resource requests. So once you set an objective to improve upon some aspect of the data or some aspect of your program, then you can request the resources that you need to meet those objectives. The next step is to run through these objectives and see if they still make sense for the next 5 years. To do that, you can either double click on the objectives here, or you can click on the 3 dots and select Open. Once you're here, you have a couple of options. The first is to keep the objective the same as it was in the last program review. So for example, if I thought that improving employee survey scores related to data access and data understanding would be a good objective for the next 5 years, I could just keep it as it is. If not, I can change it or modify it as much as I want. Then you'll just run through and update the questions below. The next question is specific actions that you'll take to meet this objective. So these would be all the things that my office is going to do in order to improve the employee survey scores related to data access and data understanding. Then you'll select which master plan goals this objective aligns with. You can click the drop down here, select as many as you'd like. For me, I think this goal aligns with goal 4. Then you can select which goals from the student equity plan this objective aligns with. I don't see any that kind of directly align with this specific objective, so I'm just going to leave that blank. The next field is the review type, which should be comprehensive, so you'll always want to select comprehensive here. Then the program review cycle, you're just going to select whatever the most recent cycle is. So I'm completing this in 2023, so I would select 2023 to 2027, and then I would X out of the previous cycle here. The objective status, you want to be active because this is an active objective. Next is the start date, which is a date at which you would start working on this objective. So you'd ideally want this to be at some point in the current year. So I'm just going to select today's date. I'm going to start on this today. And then the completion date should be 5 years in the future. It's a 5-year objective, so that it should be completed within 5 years. So we'll just select 5 years from today. Or let's say September 1st, 2028. Next, you can scroll down and see the progress that you made towards this objective in the last program review cycle. You're actually going to delete this information here and leave all of these fields blank. It feels scary, I know, to delete data and information, but just know that we've got all this saved in PDFs that you can access, which I'll show you how to access in just a minute. You want these boxes to be blank because when you fill out your program review next year, these are going to be the only boxes that you're going to fill out. The progress that you've made and any challenges that you've faced or encountered in progressing towards this objective. So once you're done updating the objective, you should have the objective itself, the actions you're going to take to meet the objective, the goals that it aligns with from the Educational Master Plan and the Student Equity Plan, review type comprehensive, program review cycle should be just the most recent cycle, active, start date, completion date, and then everything else should be blank. Then you'll click save. We'll just go save and close. And the objective has been successfully updated. The next thing to do is to update any resource requests that you have associated with that objective. So we're going to go back into the objective here, and we're going to click on the Resource Requests tab here. Before you do any update, the first thing I would strongly recommend doing is clicking on this Start Here PDF on the right side of the screen. Each year we make minor changes to the program review resource request process, and this Start Here document has the most up-to-date information on different types of resource requests that can and cannot be made through program review. It also includes information on the number of requests that each program can put through each year, so please take a look at this PDF before moving on. After reading through these two documents, we'll go back to our list of resource requests over here. It might be easier to view everything by changing the screen proportion to this setting here, so you've got most of the resource requests on the left side of the screen and just kind of a small menu of the PDF information over here. One important thing to pay attention to is that the default for this page is to display all resource requests your program has ever made, even if they're no longer active. Inactive requests are things that you requested years ago and were either funded, or they're things that your program no longer needs. You only really need to worry about updating your active requests. So to limit this list to only display your active requests, you'll go to this Resource Request Status dropdown and select Active. One important field to pay attention to on each resource request is this Office Use Only field. Program review resource requests from previous years that have been approved for funding will have a message here that says that they've been approved for funding. If the request was not approved for funding, then this area will be blank. In either case, you'll need to update the request for this year. To do that, you can either double-click on the request here, or you can click on the three dots and click Open. Then you'll just want to run through and update each of these fields. If you want to keep this as an active request, which means that this is something that you want to request again this year, you're going to leave the resource request status as active. If, however, it was approved for funding, or if you no longer want to request this resource again this year, then you'll change the status to inactive. If you inactivate the request, you're done with this screen and you don't need to worry about updating anything else below. If, however, you want to keep this as an active request and request it again this year, then you'll keep this resource request status as active, and then you'll fill out or update the rest of the fields below. First, you'll just change the request year to the most recent year, which in this case is 23-24. The resource request title is the one thing on this page that you won't change. So this resource request title is a unique code that allows us to track resource requests across years and across different programs. So if you already have a value in this resource request title field, don't change it at all. Next, you'll want to enter a description of the request you're making. This should just be a sentence or two about the request, about what the request actually is. You won't actually enter your justification about why you need the request here. That information you'll enter a little bit later. But for this field, again, just a brief description of what the actual request is. If you're requesting a staff position, please make sure to enter the exact title of the position that you're requesting in this description field, which you can find in this VCCD Job Descriptions tab here on the right. Click the icon, and then the district's job description webpage will open up. You'll want to scroll through and find the name of the position that you're looking for. Closing this page can sometimes be a little bit tricky because there should be a little X to close it that's up here at the top of the screen, but if your window is sized too small, this might get stuck and you might not be able to actually see the X. If that's the case, you can kind of hover over it if you can get a little tiny bit and click close. Otherwise, you can just change the proportion here and it'll close it out. Next, you'll enter the estimated cost for the request, and then you'll note whether or not you have categorical funds available to fund this request. If you do have categorical funds available to fund the request, please enter the FOAP in this field here. Next, you'll select the type of resource that you're requesting. In this case, this is a staff position that I'm requesting. And then you can also update to note if this is something that you've requested in previous years, and you can mark as many of these previous years as you need to. Then we're going to give the request a priority level. This particular request is the #1 priority for my program, meaning it's the most important request for my program. If this were the second highest priority request for my program, I'd select 2 from the list here. If it was the third highest request, I would select 3, and so on. One note that you can only use each priority level once. So you can only have one priority 1 request. You can only have one priority 2 request, and so on. And I'll show you how to check this at the end of the video when we're making our last checks before we submit our program review. Next, you'll enter the primary contact for the resource request, which would be me in this case. Then we'll scroll down here to the section where you'll actually provide your justification for why you need your request. If this is a faculty, staff, or administrator request, this is the field where you would enter that information. If it's an equipment, facilities, or technology request, you'll leave this field blank and you'll scroll down to the equipment, technology, and facilities section. A couple of additional notes if you're requesting equipment, facilities, or technology. You'll need to discuss your request with the facilities director or the IT director prior to putting it into the program review system. Specifically, if you're requesting facilities or equipment, you'll need to discuss your request with the facilities director. If you're requesting technology, you'll need to discuss your request with the IT director. After you discuss it with them, they'll give you an updated cost estimate, which you can enter here. They'll also give you a Pirates code, which verifies that you talked to them prior to entering your request into the program review system. Facilities, equipment, and technology requests that do not have a valid Pirates code will not be considered for funding. Also, you'll need to get a new Pirates code each year, even if you requested the exact same thing last year and you received a Pirates code last year. This is because costs may change from year to year, and it's important for the college to have an accurate understanding of how much each request will cost to fulfill. You'll also notice that if you're requesting equipment, facilities, or technology, there's some additional questions that need to be answered. These questions are derived directly from the rubrics that are used by the various committees on campus to prioritize and rank the requests. If you want to see the actual rubrics that the committees are using to rank these requests, they're over here on the right side of the screen. You just have to scroll down a bit here. So if I were requesting equipment, for example, I could click on this equipment rubric here to see some of the information that the Budget Resource Committee is looking for as they're ranking and reviewing the requests. If you scroll down, you can also see the actual rubric that they're using to rank each request. I strongly recommend that you take a look at these documents prior to entering your request here. And again, I would also strongly recommend that you click on the executive team planning parameters so that in addition to seeing what the committees are looking for, you can also see the factors that the executive team is looking for. Once we're done updating this request, we're going to save it. Assessment method successfully updated. Then we'll close. And that'll bring us back to the list of resource requests. Then we'll just work through the rest of the resource requests in the same way. If you want to add an additional resource request that isn't already in the list, you'll click the green plus button here, and then we'll just fill out all of this information in the same way that we just described. Once you've updated the resource request for this objective, then go back to the list of objectives here by clicking Objective and then Close. And then do the same thing for each of the other resource requests for each of your other objectives. If you'd like to add a new objective for the next 5 years, then you'll click the Screen Plus button here, answer each of the questions, and then once you have the questions answered and you save it, then you can request resources associated with that objective as well. If you'd also like to see your objectives and resource requests from previous years, you can click on the 3 lines here and then scroll down to Documents, then General, and then you'll see a list of PDFs that contain all of your responses as well as your objectives and resource requests from the previous year program reviews. You can just select one of these PDFs, click on the 3 dots, select Open, and then you'll see that we've got the objective, the resource requests, as well as the progress made for years 2 and 3. The final step in this process is to give your objectives and resource requests one last check before letting your dean know that the program review is ready for them to review. To do that, the easiest way to do that is to click on this Home button here, go to the 3 lines, click on the Home button, give it a second to load, and then it'll show all of your active objectives and all of your resource requests. A couple things to take a look at here is to make sure that your priority levels are only used once for each for each resource request, so you don't have 2 resource requests, for example, that have priority 1. Once everything looks good, there's no formal submit button to click. Instead, just send your supervisor, meaning your dean or your vice president, an email to let them know that the program review is ready for them to take a look at. One important thing to remember about this page is that this page is not updated in real time, however. It's only updated once every night at 1 a.m. So if you entered a bunch of objectives and resource requests on one day, you're not going to see updated tables here until the next day after 1 a.m. Once you're done, if you'd like to download your program review, you can export it as a Word document by going to the 3 lines here at the top left and then clicking on Reports. Give it a couple minutes, and then you'll see a Word document pop up here with all of the information that you entered that you can download by clicking on the Download button here, or you can print here. And that's basically all there is to it. If you have any questions at all about any of this, please feel free to call or email us. You can find our contact information back on the program review page here. Just scroll down to the bottom of the page, click on the Contact Us link, and then you'll see our phone numbers and email addresses. Thank you, and have a great program review.